See, people now realize the New World Order, globalism is real. And about 2% of the population is now trying to prep. Most experts I talk to say that if 3 to 4 to 5% start to prep, that's going to drive up prices.
So about 2 years before Y2K hit, I wrote the book, Strategic Relocation, the first edition. It's been a long gestation since there. The book has been selling steadily since 1998. But since this new third edition came out, it has all new color maps of every state in the Union, provinces of Canada, all of the regional threats, charts galore. It's the analysis in this book, as well as the graphics that leads people through a complete understanding of every state, helps them walk through the decision process. Because frankly, this is not easy.
And this truly is the secrets of survival from one of the foremost experts.
Well, part of it is that they don't understand the nature of the conspiracy. They don't understand that there is a great, powerful force, not only to take down liberty, which is what their agenda is, but to make sure that they don't get the blame for it. So they're going to use, they blame it on everyone, they blame it on the free market, they blame it on business cycle. It's not the business, it's the monetary cycle created by the Fed. And ultimately, these people are going to escape blame because they're planning a war for us, a third world war, a nuclear war, which in fact will wipe out a great deal of the financial centers and let them to walk away and say, it wasn't our fault. I think, in fact, they're going to take Syria down before then, only because if Iran retaliated, Syria will also retaliate. It has the most weapons nearest to Israel. Israel would take a tremendous hit. Their Arrow anti-missile system is not capable of stopping the thousands of missiles that Syria can put out there, combined with those in Lebanon. And if Egypt joins the ranks as well, it could be really devastating for Israel. So I think they're going to take Syria out before. That's why they're engendering all of this foreign invasion of supporting the rebels, and why they don't give Assad credit for anything, including a ceasefire. They continue to exacerbate that ceasefire, as you've reported on your news very, very well.
And so getting the Middle East out of the way is just a prelude towards the larger war they want to start.
But it's part and parcel of the larger war, because part of that is you've got to build, Russia and China, who are going to prosecute this war against the West, need to have an excuse so they don't look like aggressors. That excuse is being handed to them by our globalist leaders, by this intervention. The underlying cause of all of the intervention is the desire to give the West the reputation of the bully of the world.
This was an insane war that brought us low economically, morally. We went to war against a guy who had absolutely nothing to do with 9/11. It was a total pretext. It's inexplicable. And there you go to Cheney, there you go to Bush, there you go to the Jewish neocons who wanted to remake the world. Maybe I can say that because I'm Jewish, and to bring about a certain result in the Middle East.
You can.
Okay.
I'm not really sure.
For everyone. But let's talk about this major threat. The number one that I concentrate on is not terrorism. It's not natural disaster. It's not even government or war. The major threat is population density, because every crisis that threatens, even a local crisis, can turn exponential because of close proximity to other people who cannot help themselves. Even good people panic in a crisis. You don't have to be evil. It doesn't have to be just a Watts. When you have no food after 3 days, all of the store shelves are empty. If there's no water, it's exacerbated. If there's no electricity, there's going to be no gasoline. People are limited. You won't even be able to walk out of town because of the danger of threat from people interacting with other people. So population density is the major threat. And if you have that, to look, how far am I away from a major county road that goes out there and that's going to be streaming with refugees? There's going to be famine. They're going to be out of water, out of gas. They're going to start spanning out within walking distance. And that, for most people that are tired and hungry and modern day people, is about 5 miles. You've got to be beyond
all of those things when added together. That's the real threat. And I see the elite digging in, not for the end of the world, but for major civilization collapse and stockpiling to reemerge in the Rand Corporation plan to basically then dominate.
This is going to serve as a very good early warning, because I'm watching this every day about how the Russians and Chinese are prepared. Right. Now, there's also an agenda about cultural conflict brewing here. And that's one of the reasons why, no matter how much they talk about amnesty and how that's going to guarantee the problem, it doesn't. They know, in fact, it's a magnet. They won't close the borders. They never will seal the border. They want the cultural conflict that Europe is experiencing that comes. It's not only crime, it is the fact that you water down American cultural values, conservative political values, make sure that you can never win another election. So there's that agenda. And I have in strategic relocation several maps that talk about minority concentrations. And I don't do this because I view minorities necessarily as inferior, but because with certain cultural inflows, you have generalities you can make about the levels of crime that come from those cultural inflows and what it impacts American society. We know that there are radical people funded by globalist elements like La Raza and other organizations that want to foment social unrest and racial tension. Right. But it is important to realize that certain areas of the country are predominated with minorities that will become culturally conflicting with your values at some point. So that's one of the dangers. And you have these racial activists within the Latino community, too, that get these people out on the streets. This is not going to bode well for America, even though the person who's fluent in Spanish, I have many, many Latin American friends. I've lived in South America. I feel very comfortable with these people. I recognize, and the good Latinos recognize the coyotes, the people who are the predators, the drug dealers, the people who are giving them a bad name. And they're here in the United States and they're protected.
Joel, you also in your book get into ethnicity maps. And let's face it, the globalists look at those and use the media to play groups off against each other. Take Trayvon Martin just recently. They edited audio together, the 911 call, NBC did, to make it sound like he was racist against black people. They sent Justice Department people in to the new Black Panther Party, it turned out, to call for race war. So during an emergency or in a collapse, they're definitely going to try to play people off against each other. And you break down maps of this in your book. Tell us about it.
I do cover the cultural conflict issue as well as racial and ethnicity. And I show maps that show where high-density minority populations are. And I do this not because I'm racist, because I have many friends in both camps, but because those camps themselves realize that they're being manipulated by the media, by globalists. It's a very popular thing to play on race. It's not so much that they will use it, in my opinion, during a crisis as much as they will use it to foment crises. And they have for many, many years used the illegal alien. Whenever you get a strong movement in conservatives against giving amnesty, they hit the streets. Somebody's pushing those people out on the streets. ICE goes and does a raid and then they show all these kinds of pictures about the poor family members that are getting deported and little children are being left behind. This is meant, of course, to change law, to diminish one's ability to close the borders and have but ultimately, I think it's wise to stay away from large interculturally mixed communities, which can be used in a crisis to turn against you or to play one race against another.
Well, that's like
every globalist predator center believes in controlling population. Only Russia needs population. Everyone else is trying to destroy population, China including. They've got an agenda to eliminate probably at least 3/4 of the world population.
Well, it's about what I see. The Chinese, it's in the news, are going crazy building underground bases. Never in the Cold War do they do this at this speed. The Russians, giant bases underground everywhere. It even comes out in the press that they're just dumping massive amounts of money into this. The Swiss, who've got 2-year supplies for their whole population, are expanding programs. All over Europe, the elites are publicly moving to islands and preparing and building bunkers. You know, you're in that business. You say you've never seen it expand like this. And governments are digging in. And COG is expanding and stockpiling. They are racing. And people say, well, that's because 2012. Oh, or that's because of the comment. And all this made-up crud. And then you've got the seed vaults and at the North Pole and other places. And you've got DNA arcs and all of this, and the Rockefeller Foundation heavily involved in this. They don't just build infrastructure and do things for no reason. So why?
You've got to decapitate the military so a nation wants to give up and not fight. That's what the Russians and Chinese are betting on. Decapitate the United States and everybody's going to give up and say, whoa, we can't defend ourselves without the U.S. military.
Joel, what's the time frame after the United States is attacked? I mean, how far out do you see this happening, and how fast until the globalists reemerge and try to create this counter New World Order to Russia?
What we're going to do in preparing for that war is important. It is survivable. People need to prepare, but they have to get outside blast zones.
Again, you're watching. We intend, as a public service, to post this to YouTube at the Alex Jones channel, and I'm sure Change the Channel and others will want to post it as well. And so I hope those of you out there watching this on YouTube will support the author, Joel SKOUSEN, by buying his books at InfoWarsStore.com.